Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to Brewing with Magic, Brew Crew Edition. And with us again is Will. Hello, Will.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, you're over there. Okay.
Yeah, this guy.
So we're gonna do something a little bit different today. We're pretty excited about the new set coming up, being Strixhaven. And in anticipation, we have decided we're going to preview the first 5 cards. They've been out for a few weeks, but we've been talking to some people in the community who hadn't even heard that they were out yet, and so we thought we would go ahead and give you our take on these. So let's go over them real quick. So I'll read them off for us, and then we'll get into some deck ideas that we have. And Will, you could help me explain what we're thinking on those, if you don't mind. First, we have a Silver Quill Command, 1 black, 1 white, 2 colorless. It is a sorcery. Choose 2. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. Return target creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Or target player draws a card and loses 1 life, or target opponent sacrifices a creature. Then we have Prismari Command, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 colorless, instant, that's nice. Choose 2. Prismari Command deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token, or destroy target artifact. So, pretty good one there, I think. Witherbloom Command is 3rd, 1 green, 1 black, sorcery. Choose 2. Target player mills 3 cards, then you return a land card from your graveyard to your hand. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Target creature gets -3/-1 until end of turn. And last, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Then we have a Lorehole Command, 1 white, 1 red, 3 colorless, instant. Choose 2. Create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible and have haste until end of turn. That's nice. So your 3/2 that you just created is also going to be attacking that same turn if you choose those modes. Nice. Lorehole Command does 3 damage to any target. Target player gains 3 life. And last on this one, a sacrifice a permanent, then draw 2 cards. And then the 5th command that we were given is 1 blue, 1 green, 1 colorless, Quadrix Command, and that's an instant as well. Choose 2. Return target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. And target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from their graveyard into their library. So those are the commands. Will has helped me gather some neat looking decks that we think that these will fit into. And before we do that, I just want to remind y'all that we are trying to give away 3,400 gems to one of you lucky subscribers as soon as we hit 100. So if you'll do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, completely free, takes a second. Watch, Will just did it. I just saw him do it.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, give the video a like, share it, let your friends know about it, and let's have a fun building a community and get these gems given away to somebody. So, okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the decks. So first up, we're going to go with the Silver Quill Command, which, to remind you, is the black and white one, which I guess makes a whole lot of sense since we are currently looking at the black and white deck that we have previewed for today. So, Will, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about the Silver Quill Command, and or what, like, if you want to get any specifics about the card first, and then why we chose this deck for the upcoming meta that we would try it out in first.
Sure. Well, the Silver Quill Command, 1 black, 1 white, 2 colorless. So you have the 2 again, choose 2 options, +3/+3, flying until the end of turn. But the real value part of the card, even though that's a really good start to this deck because you're actually bringing home some damage. But the second part, return target creature card with a mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's not to your hand, but it's to the battlefield. And pretty much your whole deck, except for Loris, is going to be a creature of 2 or less. So you're going to bring whatever you want back and put it directly onto the battlefield. The third part, target player draws a card and loses a life. I mean, that's good for us. So we can try to move ahead. We do lose a life, but again, with like Loris or the LC's Bounty, we're gaining life, as well as the Hateful Ilion. So everything pretty much in our deck is going to give us life regardless. So we should be good there. And then finally, target opponent sacrifices a creature. For us, that's great because we're on the early play trying to knock them out using enchantments and auras. And with that, if they have a bigger creature that we can enchant or out, but we've got rid of a lot of the smaller creatures, then this is just an instant sack. So with this sheet, with this build type that we put together, this is something that we've seen so far in the past. black-white aura deck. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty good deck because it just keeps moving forward with the LC bounties. You're drawing cards, and it's definitely a forward-moving deck. And then with Loris, you're bringing all your stuff back and doing it again. So I feel like it's a really good set piece for a deck like this one that we currently see in the meta.
So basically, what I'm hearing is it's an amazing card for this deck because it's your top end, hopefully game finisher with the +3/+3 and flying, along with target opponent sacrifices a creature. Those two things should just get you in and finish the game. And if not, then you get to return a creature to the battlefield and draw a card and refill your hand and get more cards on the board. It sounds like a win-win-win for a deck like this as a top end card. So
Yeah, and if people already are familiar with how busted sometimes Loris can be in decks, this is just an extra added value to add to a Loris deck in general. Since you have to, if you want to use Loris as your companion, and your creatures have to be, a CMC 2 or less anyways, then it's just a perfect addition to any companion Loris deck that you're probably going to run anyways.
And one thing to point out is the deck is sitting at 57 cards because of the 3 Silver Quill commands. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and take a look at Prismari command. Okay, so Will, why don't you once again please tell us anything about the Prismari command specifically that you think is really good for people to know, and then why did we choose this particular shell to run it in?
Yeah, no problem. So the Prismari command, I still think is probably going to be one of the better commands in the
Agreed.
deck. So being 1 red, 1 blue, 1 colorless, with your option choices, they run pretty well with Is It, and making it such a forward-moving card since it's an instant as well. So it fits into a lot of Is It decks. One of the choices is deal 2 damage to any target, which is always great. You're just trying to punch through. This is my favorite part of it, though. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. So you're always kind of like, shuffling through your deck to kind of get to that next level and hopefully get the spell you do need.
Kind of like a pseudo cycling, right?
Yes, yeah, 100%. And that's one reason why I really dig it. And then target player creates a treasure token, which is good in a lot of those higher end Is It decks. If you have a dragon and you're swinging and you're creating a treasure, that's also a good addition. And then destroy target artifact, which is super helpful in some cases. But for the most part, I think the first 2 are going to be the primary. The other 2, depending on the meta, of course, will always make changes. But in this shell, and this is one of those top end decks that we're seeing on the ladder right now, using the Is It features. So, their riddle form is down, and they're able to cast instant sorceries to turn into a 3/3 creature. They have the Spirit Dragon, where they're trying to strike you in the, right at you, and then with any of the spells getting +1/+1 counters. And then Phoenix of the Ash gives it as haste, and then the Stormwing Entity, because again, if you cast any spell, it comes in for 2 cheaper. So just with this shell alone, we were looking at it, and we saw that the advantageousness of this command in this deck particularly, even though the early game, yeah, you're going to be smashing their face, you're going to be doing ops and shocks most likely, or dropping riddle forms or sprite dragons initially and trying to push the damage through. But when you get to that mid-range game, sometimes this deck almost stalls out. So being able to draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, maybe it's just the 2 damage you need to punch them through, or maybe it's a treasure because you need 1 more land to kind of like get off that extra spell. But in this deck, having any of these creatures on board, getting to a 3-drop CMC, and still being able to kind of punch through and move through, especially if you're getting flooded with lands, you'll definitely see more value out of this card, I think, in this shell.
And I like what you said there, if you get flooded with cards, because with a total converted mana cost of 2.2, the deck only runs 22 lands. So when you get flooded, you definitely don't need that many. But the other side of the token there is the fact that you get that treasure if you just can't find the land. And like you said, then you can just get that extra land. So maybe you need that 4th one to escape the Phoenix or something like that. So okay, I really like it in this deck. I think that's a really good one. So the next card we are going to talk about is going to be Witherbloom Command. Okay, and as you noticed, we are back to the preview page that we started on, and Will, why don't you tell us why that is?
So Witherbloom Command is a very, I want to say niche command in this case. You know, being Golgari colors, I'm sure it'll fit in certain Golgari decks. Maybe Abzan if you throw in some white and you can get some factors out of it. But as we go through the card itself, you know, target player mills 3 cards and then you return the land, which is great. So you're getting a mana ramp. In an Abzan deck or certain types of Golgari decks where you're using like Grave Recursion, this card will be great. Right now in the current meta, we're not seeing a ton of that. So it's kind of hard for us to really showcase this card in a better light without having a little bit more substantial deck idea behind it to give you guys a better outlook.
Now, that's not to say that this card doesn't fit in Brawl, Historic, or in other formats that aren't Arena, but, you know, we're not saying we're focusing only on Arena, but today we're thinking about Best of One and Arena. So I only say that because here in the future, spoiler, we will have some Commander videos coming out, hosted by our very own Will. And we'll have some special Brew Crew friends coming out in the future, so look out for that. But so in the aspect of what we're talking about right now, we're just talking about Best of One and Arena for the most part. So
yeah, especially in Standard.
I don't want people yelling at us like, "Come on, it fits in blah blah for sure." So
and if it does, and you have a great idea, you know, just put it in the comments.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
Look through it and see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other parts of it, you know, destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with a value of 2 or less. Yes, we do have enchantments and we do have artifacts that do affect us that are at that CMC. So it can be useful. The other one, target creature gets -3/-1 until the end of turn. So maybe you're trying to swing in with a 1/1 Death Touch, and the other guy has a I don't know, a 3/2, and you don't want to trade your Death Touch. Then yeah, you can sorcery speed it, give him the choice if he wants to block. But to me, that's very niche. And then target opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. So if you're gonna play that in some kind of aristocrat deck, or if you're gonna use it where you're gaining life and they're losing life, then yeah, definitely it'll be a card to add.
Now the second mode reads destroy target Maze Mind Tome to me, and the third mode reads destroy Toski to me. But here's the thing: is this command and at sorcery speed worth dropping something in one of the current Golgari or other decks? So I think that's kind of why we just left it at where we left it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Lorehole command, and we actually have 2 different decks we want to show you there.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is the we have two decks we want to show you for the Lorehole command. And first off, we have the meta deck, if you will. The other one is a Brewing with Magic Brew I like that one, Brew Crew. And yes, I am missing Narsets. I could prove that it's only 2 of them. I could craft them. I don't want to, so go ahead and leave a comment down below that I don't own them. I get it. So, but yeah, so Will, why don't you go over Lorehole command real quick, tell us anything notable, and then why we chose this shell to put it in.
Okay, so Lorehole command is a Boros command, and when you think Boros, you think quick. So you would hope that that command would be maybe a CMC2 or a CMC3, but unfortunately, it is a mid-range command card for Boros. So 1 red, 1 white, 3 colorless, it's 5. So the good part about the card, though, is the value it brings. And I think this is going to be a great asset for a mid-range Boros deck, or in this case, Jeskai. And so the first one is create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token, which is great because it's an instant spell, so you can do it as a blocker in response if someone's attacking you, or at your end step. So next turn, you can swing an attack with a 3/2 right off the bat. The second part is creatures you control get +1/+0, gain indestructible, and haste, which is already an awesome effect. So if you decide that you want that 3/2, have it be a 4/2, and have it be indestructible on your turn as an instant, as an attacker to maybe finish off an opponent, that's awesome. If you're playing a mid-range deck that has a bunch of creatures, you just pump them and they're indestructible, so now they have to deal with it. So those are always good, two values out of it. The next one, and I love this because for you, you know, Magic players out there who've played in red and white before, you know how much gaining life and dealing damage is always the best thing. So this is like throwback to Lightning Helix that we had in the past.
How much was that card? Do you remember? I cannot. Is it 4 converted mana cost?
No, it's a 3.
Is it 3?
Yeah.
I thought it was like 1 white, 2 red, and a colorless. Okay, well at 3, this is is for 1. You still get to pick a whole nother thing. Okay, so I just want to know real quick.
No. So it's the cool part about it is it's like you're getting that 3 value, but you're getting an additional spell. So not only are you shooting it for 3, gaining 3 life, you're also creating a 3/2. You're giving all your creatures haste +1 and indestructible, or you're sacrificing a permanent and then drawing 2 cards. Now in red and white, both of those colors, you want to draw cards like all the time. So this command is probably the best for Boros that we've seen, due to the fact that from a mid-range standpoint, you're moving your deck forward, you're striking in for damage, you're gaining life, so it has a lot of value in this
And
command.
this just in, I'd like to make a correction. I did check it. We were both wrong. Lightning Helix is a converted mana cost of 2. One white, one
Oh,
red. So,
sorry about that.
hey,
Yeah,
hey,
you're
hey.
right. One right, one red.
But we didn't
Man.
finish the episode. We didn't put out false information for longer than about 10, 20 seconds. So,
So with that said, the cool part about this shell in particular, it's a mid-range spell. It's using Narset. It has the Bone Crusher Giants in there, but the Goldspan Dragon, the Shark Typhoons, the Emerald's Call, that's really what you're actually doing the damage with to win this deck over. Now, don't be wrong, if you are able to ultimate Narset, then yeah, you'll win just basically with your spells. But for the most part, this deck particularly wins with Goldspan Dragon or Shark Typhoon, dealing the majority of the damage and getting through. So if you have a mid-range card to, I don't know, either make it indestructible, give it a +1, or maybe you destroy your Omen of the Sea to draw 2 cards, or you do your ability to shoot them for 3, gain 3 life. So yeah.
yeah, and then once again, the deck's sitting at 77 cards because when we first test it in the shell, I believe we want to try it out with 3. If it's amazing, we'll go to 4. Something tells me it will settle around 2 or find another shell. So, why don't we take a look at the deck you built that you thought this would really go well in? It just came to your head, you said, immediately, which I think is super cool, so I wanted to show that off. Okay, and here's the deck. It looks like some kind of an... Is it giant kind of deck, maybe? I kind of like what I'm seeing, so why don't you go and tell us what you were thinking?
Sure. So I wanted to make a more of a kind of a power grab move, and use a majority of the cards that we're seeing right now. Giants are making a strong push in the meta. Of course, it's definitely a niche still, but I'm sure with Strixhaven coming out, I'm hopeful that they're going to be adding a lot more giant-esque
Yeah, it
spells or
definitely
things
feels
that
like
move to it.
they're like 1 or 2 giants or cards away, right? Because if I'm playing certain decks, I absolutely steamroll them, but if I'm playing other decks, it feels like I can't even stop them. So they're close.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping with that, then this card will also play into this deck, maybe with some other future cards that will be coming out. So I wanted to start it off by, of course, playing Snowlands. So then I have the use of Frostbite at the front of it, so we can make sure that we're doing either 2 or 3 damage to target creatures. Fire Prophecy to move the deck forward, and also deal damage. And also we have Invasion of the Giants. That's just a great card in general for an enchantment. You're able to scry 2, then draw a card, deal 2 damage once you show a giant, and then making your giants cheaper. So it's definitely of value in this deck. Shatter Skull Smashing, just again, it can either be damage removal or it can be a land, either way. Bone Crusher Giant, I mean, it's one of the best giants in the game, used for most of all red formats. And then, of course, you have the new Keldheim Giant with the Augur. And he's a 3/3 legendary creature, and he's great. So whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt access damage, if a giant, which is specific to this jet, and of course wizards, or spell you control dealt damage to this turn, draw a card. So he moves your deck forward. So if your giants are able to get through, you're drawing cards. If damage is getting through, you're able to draw cards. So it's really effective. And then with that, we have our Calamity Bearer. And Calamity Bearer is just a great giant asset card. I mean, you're just doubling your damage now from all your giants, so it's just perfect. And then Quakebringer. Quakebringer again, it's a 5/4. Once it's on the battlefield, your opponents can't gain life, which is also a really awesome plus. But if it dies, you're still doing damage from the graveyard, so it's perfect. And then Battle of the Frost and Fire. So this enchantment, of course, everyone hopefully has seen it. 4 damage to all non-giant creatures. Scry 3. Whenever you cast a spell with a converted mana cost 5 or greater this turn, draw 2 cards. So again, all of your later end giants are starting to get you some card draw as well. And then, of course, we have the Doomscar Giant. So the Doomscar Titan enters the battlefield. Creatures you control get +1/+0, gain haste till the end of turn. So you want to foretell this, and this can be an early on foretell card. And then you start working with the other giants, and then out of nowhere you drop this guy, and you pump your guys, and you start to move in pretty fast. So it's really fun on the back end.
So if that's foretold and your invasion of the giants pops on the third one, you throw this for 1 red and 2 colorless.
Yep. Yep. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, you gotta love this guy. So with our Realm Giant, he is able to, on the first side, a sorcery, destroy all non-giant creatures. Well, your deck's all giants, you're destroying their side, and you're able to come in and hopefully just smash them for the win. And then on the other side, he's a Vigilance 7/7. So either way, you're getting some good major threats on the board. Okay, so then we move into Amira's Call. So it's not only at the land, but you're also creating 4/4 angels, and then that's also good for you as well. So in the late game, say they got through all your giants, say you guys are hashing it out, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to drop 4 angels on the battlefield and deal with it. So it's definitely a good card.
And MTG Nerd Alert, that is awesome artwork. Sorry.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And then, of course, we have the Inspired Ultimatum. So this card is amazing. So target player gains 5 life. Inspired Ultimatum deals 5 damage to any target. And then you draw 5 cards.
I think you could have just said it's an ultimatum.
Yeah, it's true. When you get to an ultimatum card, if you're doing it, it's doing.
You're casting an ultimatum, and you're like, that's just not very impactful. Then you're doing something wrong.
100%. And in this deck, since we're mid-ranging it anyways, and we're doing a lot of upfront stuff, hopefully they're dealing with a lot of our stuff. If you get to this point, it's great because, okay, I'll gain some life back, I'll deal 5 damage to what I need to, and I'll drive 5 more cards to push my board even further ahead. And then next, we have our lands, which are basically mostly, like I said, snow lands, pathways.
Nothing notable there for the most part. Just normal,
yeah.
basic land package. And then, of course, oops, 40 cards. That should say 60. You didn't see that, and nobody saw that. Don't worry. We'll just fix that real quick. So, once again, we would be adding 3 in. It seems to be the number that we like for this particular command where we'll start testing it initially. So...
Yeah. And Lorehold with this deck specifically, which is great. If you already have maybe a couple giants out, giving them a +1 and indestructible, dealing 3 damage to something and gaining 3 life, so maybe you can push through. Or if the very least, maybe even destroy at the end of your end step your own Quakebringer, put it in the graveyard and draw 2 cards. Because either way, if you have a giant on the board, then you're still doing 2 damage. So it kind of fits into the theme of this whole deck package.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that looks really fun. And if anybody who watches our videos on the regular, or if you're subscribed to us, yes, we are a little addicted to giants at the moment. So, sorry. And then lastly, we have Quandrix Command. So let's go ahead and hop on over to that. Okay, so, well, first off, one thing I'm noticing right out the gate, we're only going to try 2 of this command in this deck. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about the command real quick and why we chose this shell to put it in.
Sure. So for the Quandrix command, we're looking at 1 blue, 1 green, so it's Simic, of course, and 1 colorless. So with this, it fits really well into this deck. And this, if you have not seen this deck, Sultai Control
I don't know
has
where you've been.
Like the #1 deck pushing the ladder right now. And I was like, well, what better card, that can fit into this theme? So think about Sultai Control for the most part, right? The cards in general are, use them, abuse them, and lose them. Because eventually what you're trying to do is ramp up as fast as you can, get the ultimatum, drop what you need, and overpower the game. But there are some of those times when you're playing this deck, and maybe it's not working 100%, or they're destroying some of your stuff, or maybe they're able to counter some of your things. So you're kind of getting in that weird spot. So this command actually fits well into this deck because of a couple of reasons. So the first reason is, return target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. So if you need to, get something back, maybe creature-wise, and put it back in your hand, maybe you want a Valky back in your hand, maybe you want Vorniclex back in your hand, then great. So those 2 alone,
you can use it as a protection, right? Like, so because this deck goes so late that on turn 10, if you slam a Vorinclex down and they go to remove it, you just bounce it right back to your hand.
Yeah, so you're able to just get it right back to you and go, hey, I'm there.
Or like what you said with the Valky. So basically, you could play Valky on turn 2, get information from their hand. Yep. Turn 3, pass at their end of the turn. If they don't do anything, bounce Valky back to your hand so that you can throw it later as Tibalt, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, now you're getting to use both sides. Okay, cool. I
Yes.
like it.
Yeah. And then the other one is counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Now, most of the enchantments that people are playing, say Binding of the Old
Embercleave,
Gods, things
Great
like
Henge.
Embercleave, Great Henge, all of these things. I mean, they're game stoppers, or or enough to annoy you from moving forward. So this stops that from happening, which I always think is great. The next one is put 2+1/1 counters on target creature. So in this case, say you are able to ultimatum, you get Vornaclex out, and you get that second turn because they decide to pick that versus Valky. Then great, on your second turn, not only do you hit him for 6 initially with your Vorinclex, now you have 2/1/1 birds. Then you're able to put the command on Vorinclex. So now Vorinclex is a 10, or you can put him on the birds and pump them up twice to the 3/3s.
Right.
And then
Right.
you swing out.
I like that one.
They're just dead. So they're just dead. So
I wish someone would give me a Vorinclex and an Alrund's Epiphany, but so, I mean, I guess you get that a whole lot more than Vorinclex and Kiora. But yeah, I think that's great. You get a Vorinclex, Alrund's Epiphany, take another turn. The next turn, 3/3 birds swing in. I love it.
Yeah, so you're able to really manipulate the board and use it in your favor. And then finally, the last one, target player shovels up to 3 target cards from their graveyard into their library. Now, with this deck specifically, say you have to early on Shark Typhoon, or say your Cura the Beast, you're able to drop it, or you're able to cast it, but they counter it, or they're able to destroy it on the board.
Say you're going against another control deck and you've ultimatumed once or twice, so you've already burned those, and they've been able to stabilize the board again.
Yeah, and now you're able to shuffle these back in your deck and hopefully, draw your 3 best cards again.
Because how often do you lose Valky? When you play this deck, I swear, you always, for me at least, Valky always I naturally draw it, and it's always early game, or it gets milled, and so I would love to put Valky back in my deck.
Yeah, and that's why when looking at this shell, or this deck specifically, I was like, man, that would actually fit really well into how this deck flows. So, Sultai decks, Simic decks, of course, they're going to get value, but I think Sultai, for the most part, is going to see some more gameplay, especially even in this next season. So with that, I think kind of manipulating some of the cards, the command you can add, I'm sure there's going to be some other cool stuff, but I think this fits really well into this deck.
And it's crazy, is when we originally talked about it, I was kind of a little like, I liked a different shell for it. I really growing on me now. Like, I don't even think 2 is enough. I think definitely I would try to get, once again, I think I'd try to get the 3rd one in to test. So, man, okay, well, I like this one. Well, you're right. I was wrong. You're right. This is definitely the shell to start with that card. Now, that's not to say that there aren't going to be new archetypes. We just wanted to feature some, like the Giants deck that you created. Like there's going to be some other shells, but we wanted to show you where you could start using these cards on day 1 if they looked good enough to be playing. So I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. We do want to remind you, we want to give someone 3,400 gems. So if you found any use in this content today, let's say you didn't even know these cards were out yet, well, then you have to subscribe. It's not even our rule. So if you don't mind, subscribe to the video, give the video a like, share it with your friends. As soon as we hit that 100 subscribe mark, we're giving away 3,400 gems at random to one of our subscribers. I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. So thank you very much for helping us build the community. Will, thank you very much for your help, and as always, everything you do for the site. And until next time, everybody, remember, Will, have a blast in the arena.